BAC Mono, the world's only single-seater road-legal car of the moment. But it's the Rolls-Royce Dawn Black Badge that leads us away. Rolls-Royce will not use the word sporty, but you will very rarely see a Rolls-Royce being driven with this kind of verve, with its door handles this close to the ground.
Handles nicely, doesn't it, Matt?
It does, yeah, beautifully.
Fairly
beautifully balanced for a big car.
Suspension, but rockets around the corners. Heading for the most difficult corner on Goodwood Hill, Molecombe, which it goes around with no trouble at all. Yeah, and the driver's notes do say when you go to sign on, it says if you wait until you see Molecombe Corner, it is probably too late to start braking for it. It is the scene of the most mishaps, isn't it? More than the flint wall, which is probably the key to a really quick time up here. Commitment through that flint wall, where visibility is hard because it goes under the trees, but the drivers who put it closest to the wall seem to come out the other side with the best intermediate split time. So this is a shootout, so we're getting times, and the Rolls-Royce 62.16, followed by this fabulous Aston Martin.
Yeah, Darren Turner in the Vulcan AMR. The Vulcan is a 24 off-track car. The AMR is an even faster version of that. It's not really ideally suited to a course like this. It's more suited to big, open, fast circuits like Silverstone, perhaps.
He's
but
followed
it's
by
a really quick car.
Followed by Anthony Reid in the unique BAC Mono single-seater. Anthony has won the run-off here on numerous occasions. Immensely rapid, very competitive driver, and it'll be a quick time. Yeah, well, anything under 50 is really fast. That's 49. He has been faster. 49 seconds was the time he set last year. He went a bit faster than that yesterday, but that is a really fast time. Would take some beat. There's not many cars which we've seen in the Supercar run able to go that quickly. Ford GT, race car developed for the road, unusually that way round, which is why the seats are very close together. It was designed for racing. It raced at Le Mans, won the GT class there.
Yeah, it has been homologated for road use from a race car rather than most GT3, GTE cars, which are road cars first, race cars second. Ford was going to go back to Le Mans with a Mustang, but it decided the frontal area was too large, and hence it started working with the GT instead.
And here is a Mustang, the Super Snake, driven by Bill Shepherd. 5-litre Mustang, developed to go even quicker.
Yeah, it's around about 800 horsepower actually, which is just extraordinary. The proper old school muscle car, but a car which has been in production since the 60s in one guise or another, and it just evolves really beautifully, doesn't it, Chris? It's retro without being too much of a pastiche of the original.
But it still has hints of the original.
Yeah.
So 59.47 for Bill in the Mustang. What have we got? We've got Jaguar, the F-Type SVR with the big supercharged V8 engine.
Yeah, various staff members and engineers from Jaguar's Special Engineering Division at the wheel of these cars this weekend. Graham Moss, one of the development engineers, he's in the four-wheel drive F-Type SVR, which is supercharged by 5-litre engine. It was always meant to have that engine, unlike the Project 8, which we may see soon, which was never meant to have that engine in it.
59.73 for the Jaguar.
Here's a car that should be quick. It's the Porsche 911 GT2 RS. So that's the turbocharged motorsport version. This is the current production car record holder around the Nürburgring launch line.
Is that lighter and quicker than the GT3?
It's a little bit heavier than the GT3 on account of the fact that of the turbo, but it does have 700 horsepower to make amends.
Maserati, that famous Italian name, and a lovely V8-powered Gran Turismo. What does MC stand for?
MC is the faster version of it. It's the sportiest version you can buy of the Gran Turismo. It gets stiffer dampers, non-adjustable dampers, and is more hardcore than the regular version. But it's still quite a refined, luxurious Grand Tour. It's a long car, it's almost 5 meters long, but it's comfortable and yet quite sporting at the same time.
His Lotus doing really well under their new owners. For the first time ever in their history, they've got real money behind them, and they've developed the new version of the Evora.
Yes, yeah, there's lots to come from Lotus over the next few years. Gavin Kershaw has gone very, very quickly in the Exige 430 Type 49 Special Edition, to be followed by David Pook, I think, who is one of Jaguar's lead engineers on the Project 8. So I say this is an XE underneath, but very heavily redeveloped.
Matt, tell me what the maximum speed is.
It's about 200 miles an hour, which is just
crazy. Is that crazy?
Bentley Bentayga. Currently, the SUV record holder up the Pikes Peak hill climb, and Rhys Millen in the road-going variant of it.
And this is the one that won its SUV class at Pikes Peak just a couple of weeks ago, flew back, landed in this country back from Pikes Peak on Wednesday, got here on Thursday.
Mechanically fairly standard to the regular W12 powered car, about 600 horsepower. The only modifications they made to it for the Pikes Peak Challenge were those for safety, so it has the right seats, harnesses, cage and so on.
Yeah. 5344. The Bentayga is a luxury SUV.
Yeah, that's
W12 or diesel or V8.
That's right, yeah. This is the W12, which, given that that will tip the scales of, what, 2,300 kilos, that's fast on a narrow, tight, twisting course like this.
Lexus are developing very sporty cars, started with luxury cars, but getting more and more sporty.
Indeed, yeah. Made their debut in the late 1980s with the LS, which was intended to do what the Mercedes-Benz S-Class did in terms of luxury. But as you say, they've expanded the range over the years, so it now encompasses SUVs and also sports coupes, like this RCF. It's powered by a 5-litre naturally aspirated V8. Channel 4, actually, I'm quite keen with the introduction of turbochargers everywhere else to find that there are still a few purists holding on to Revy V8 engines.
The first supercar had a V10, didn't it?
Yes, it did, the LFA, which is part of this this run as well, which is a carbon fibre 400,000 car. That chassis had a torsional rigidity the same as the car you see on screen at the moment, which is the next generation Supra. It arrives next year. It's being driven by the chief engineer for the project, Tetsuyuri Tada, who also engineered the GT86, which we love. That's a bit like the BRZ and has a boxer engine in it. But this, even though it has a BMW straight 6, has a lower centre of gravity. 50-50 weight distribution, rear-wheel drive, limited slip differential. They promise it'll be terrific.
Are they combining to produce a BMW version and a Toyota version?
Yes, but they'll be very different. Unlike the BRZ and the GT86, which are kind of the same, these two will be very different, but they happen to be built at the same place, and they both use a BMW 6-cylinder engine. Toyota asked existing Supra customers from the car that went out of production 15 years ago, what must the new Supra have? And they said, well, it must have a straight 6 with a turbocharger on it, and it must be front-engine rear-wheel drive. And Toyota looked around and found that BMW was the only logical partner to go in with it.
This is a lovely joke by Aston Martin. Do you remember the Aston Martin Signet, which was a developed version of the little
Toyota IQ? Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, with a bit more luxurious, and you could. Yes, it was to lower the average range CO2, wasn't it?
That's right.
They've got a good enough sense of humour about it now that they've stuck a 0.7 V8 from the Vantage in it. This is the Polestar 1, which is Volvo's new performance car division.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, Volvo are doing great things under Geely ownership, who are the new owners of Lotus as well. So that's why I think we can afford to be really excited about what's coming from Lotus over the next few years.
And determined to always have 4-cylinder engines no bigger than 2 litres.
Yeah, that's right, no bigger than 2 litres. Volvo's environmental credentials are pretty impressive, actually. So it says nothing bigger than 2 litres and 4 cylinders. It will stop making diesels pretty soon too.
Who's a fan of Steve McQueen and Bullitt? Because there is the Bullitt Mustang, the original one from the movie.
Being led by the latest special edition version of the Mustang, which is such great value for a big muscle car in the UK. This is the unrestored one of 3 from the original movie. Told a very good story yesterday that there's a scene where it smokes up its rear tyres and does a burnout during the film. It wasn't producing enough smoke, so the filmmakers drilled 2 holes in the boot, took 2 smoke canisters, put them in, and the holes are still there if you go and have a look today.
Yeah. It must never be restored. It must stay exactly as it is, perfect. Jaguar are doing so well, aren't they?
Yeah, on a real resurgence, with sales having increased by more than 50% over the last few years, thanks to the introduction of SUVs like the F-Pace. This is its rolling debut this weekend, the F-Pace SVR. It has the 5-litre supercharged engine that Jaguar is so fond of. It has a fancy rear differential to make the handling nicely balanced, even though it's four-wheel drive. And it's followed by a car I never expected to see in the Goodwood Supercar run, which is a Land Rover Defender.
Is it the last one?
No, it's a special edition with a V8 engine. Land Rover bought back a load of low-mileage Defenders to make 150 of these special edition V8 Works Defenders to show off what their special Works division can do. So it has a 400 horsepower V8 in the front, which is quite a lot in a Defender. I mean, mine's got 115.
Porsche put the 4-cylinder engine in the Boxster and the Cayman, and lots of people complain because they didn't like the noise, but it's a very efficient engine.
It is, yeah, it's really efficient, and also the power delivery really helps get the best out of this mid-engine chassis. Actually, having a lot of torque low down, especially when you're driving on the road where you can't necessarily be at the top end of a rev range all the time. For overtaking urge and to just help balance the chassis out, having that instant slug of torque at low revs is very useful.
And if you're driving it, you don't hear the engine note anyway.
You don't hear so much, do you? Certainly,
No.
yeah. It's been followed by the AMG GT4. AMG, of course, which started as a Mercedes tuner, was eventually brought completely in-house by Mercedes, and now produces its own bespoke vehicle for which there is no conventional Mercedes alternative. So it has the GT, the two-seat, two-door coupe, and this, which is the GT4, which is a four-seat coupe. That seems to be the motor industry way of referring to really good-looking four-door cars like this. This is the range-topping one, so it has a 600 horsepower, 4-litre twin-turbocharged V8, four-wheel drive, but you can put it into rear-wheel drive, as I suspect our driver is doing.
And like
all, smoke up its tyres out of some corners.
Yeah. Super cars.
Yeah, this Alberta version of the LaFerrari.
So
I think quite standard.
So hybrid, petrol, electric, producing, getting on for 700-800 horsepower.
Yes,
combined.
about 900, I think, in the LaFerrari. It has a mid-mounted V12, which can trace its roots all the way back to the Ferrari Enza when it was about 6 litres. That's gone up to about 6.5 litres in the latest Ferrari naturally aspirated V12s. There's probably one more iteration of it before hybridisation or turbocharging adds to that as well. So it's got a few years of life left in it yet.
FXX is a pure track car. They're not licensed for the road.
No, they're not. And Ferrari runs the program for some customers, serial Ferrari buyers, serial Ferrari fans, who will go spend a lot of time in the FXX. Ferrari goes through the data with them, will give them coaching, and they get to sample on track some of the very latest technology which will arrive in production Ferraris in a few years' time.
But for lots of people, a real Ferrari is front-engined with a big V12 in the front.
Yeah, this is the absolute epitome of that, isn't it? It's the 599XX. So it is part of the XX program. Beautifully balanced, has lots of aero tech, which has made its way onto the latest 812 superfast conventional production car. But it's still quite a thing, to be really.
So our top three: Anthony Reid in the Mono, BAC Mono, Andy Prio in the Ford GT, Darren Turner in the Aston Martin Vulcan.
Yeah, that's very good going, isn't it? Especially in a car as vast as the Vulcan, to bring it up here in that sort of time. Also, the Ford GT, whose big advantage is its aero tech, which really comes into its own at high speeds, higher than you would reach up the hill climb here. Here is the aforementioned 812 Superfast, with now a 6.3 litres, 800 horsepower V12 engine, which drives through a twin clutch gearbox to the rear wheels.
Have you driven one?
Yes, it's brutal.
Scary?
It's really fast, yeah. Yeah, Ferrari does make easier cars to handle, but there is something compelling about its long bonneted front engine V12 cars.
Aston Martin are on a roll, and here's the brand new DBS Superleggero announced a couple of weeks ago. Wow, hanging the tail out around the first right-hander.
Yeah, Chris Goodwin taking a break from development of the new Valkyrie hypercar, for which he's spending a lot of time in the simulator at Red Bull Racing, just to have fun in the DBS Superleggero. There was a time when Aston's looked and felt a little bit similar, but they've moved well away from that now. The latest Vantage looks nothing like the Superleggero and does completely different things. It has a very leery twin turbocharged V12 in the front, and the ability to smoke up its tyres on a whim, it would appear.
And the DB11 is selling like hotcakes, and this is the latest, the AMR, the quick version. Well, the even quicker version.
Yes, indeed, yeah. This is now the V12 version of the DB11 you can buy. The regular DB11 comes with a V8 engine, which Aston Martin has sourced from Mercedes. And as you say, Aston Martin really on a roll. At least one new model every year, augmented by special editions during the year. They sell cars. The money that comes in from the cars they sell funds the next project, and that's just how a car company should work. A 7-year model cycle, 7 models. They'll just get replaced and rejuvenated every single year.
Volante means drop-head version of an Aston Martin, and here's the DB11 Volante.
Yeah, V8 only. The thinking being that if you really want an open-topped V12, you will be able to get a DBS Superleggera with a V12 engine.
And then McLaren, and a famous name on a wonderful car. This is the McLaren Senna.
Yeah, maybe a famous name in it, because Bruno Senna has been driving Sennas during this weekend. There are a couple of them here. It is a striking-looking car, isn't it? No question. But the amount of downforce it produces is phenomenal. We're talking sort of nearly a ton of downforce at around 150 miles an hour. So its performance is all there in the very, very visible aerodynamic aids that it has.
McLaren is another great success story on the road. The road cars, they're making up about 3,000 a year now.
Yeah, yeah, and new models coming thick and fast. An announcement here at the Festival of Speed this weekend of their new models. I've got 18 new models, I think, by 2025, and more volume as well. They're all very special.
And they're developing a factory up in Rotherham, Yorkshire, to produce the carbon fibre cage.
Indeed, yeah, the carbon fibre tub, which of course all McLaren road cars have had a carbon fibre tub, and those were made overseas, but as you say, they've just opened a new facility in the north of England where they're all going to be produced in-house.
And they chose Rotherham, they chose Yorkshire because of the quality of the people up there, so
Indeed.
Well done, Yorkshire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bit of a queue,
Yeah,
supercar queue.
GT being followed by Lamborghini Huracan Performante Spider. The Huracan Performante, Lamborghini's V10 engine that did for a short while hold the lap record for production cars.
Talked yesterday to Stefano Domenicali, who's now boss of Lamborghini. He confirmed that they are working on hybrid,
Indeed.
but they will always have a big V12 or V10 engine.
Yes, exactly. As their chief engineer says, the day we do not have a naturally aspirated V12 is the day I don't work here anymore.
Yes.
Which is terrific to hear.
So I said, will you ever have a Diddy 4-cylinder engine? He went pale and said, no, never.
Excellent. Porsche's GT3 RS finished in the colours that it raced in at Le Mans and took the class win, I believe. The wonderful thing about the GT3 or GT2 and all of the other GT 911s built at Weissach is they are so closely related to Porsche's GT racing cars. You really could take the number plates off, stick a cage in and take them onto a race circuit for 24 hours, as people have done.
New car to us, W Motors.
Yeah, the W Motors Fenir, which is an Emirati supercar, but it has a very German engine in the middle of it because it has a roof-tuned 3.8-litre flat six from the 911. Being followed by Honda's NSX, the hybrid supercar from Honda. 3 electric motors alongside its twin-turbo V6, one helping to drive the rear wheels, and then one for each front wheel, which just helps out the chassis balance. So it's a curiously balanced but wonderfully balanced thing. If it starts to step out of line, it'll add a bit of power to the front to pull it straight. And such is the wonderful things you can do with electric power.
And here's the brand new Bentley Continental GT, which is a completely new version of the Continental. The engine much further back in the chassis, much better balance than the early car, but still available with W12 or V8.
V8 still to come, W12 at the moment, but as you say, much better balanced. I think the old one is something like 60-40 in the weight distribution, and it's now much closer to 50-50.
Yeah.
Here's a car that does not feel like all the weight is over the front. It is the AMG GT-R, where you sit a long way back and wheel. It's a terrific car, actually. It's one of those cars that you get out of and realise that when you look at the stopwatch, it has gone very fast around the racetrack.
I can't pronounce this, Matt. I can pronounce Pagani, but I can't pronounce the
Huayra. The god of wind. This is the Roadster. There are a couple of Paganis in the supercar round. You just saw its active aero as it braked for Malcolm. One of the air brakes on the front left, just to help the front left grip as it turns, pops up. And as I understand it, Horacio Pagani has driven a Pagani here this weekend from Italy, arriving just in time to take it up the hill this weekend. It's being followed by the Lamborghini Centenario Roadster, a car developed, very special edition, limited number car, introduced to celebrate Ferruccio Lamborghini's 100th birthday. Because Lamborghini, as a company, has not yet celebrated its 100th birthday. Ferruccio, a serial Ferrari buyer and tractor manufacturer, until famously he had a slight run-in with Enzo Ferrari, decided he would go off about 250 short wheelbase and the replacement of the clutch on it, if I remember rightly. And until, yes, they didn't have the world's most successful discussion about it, so Ferruccio went off and produced his own car. You'll find out by the Lexus LFA. I love this car. What a wonderful V10 engine that revs to 9,000 RPM plus.
I think only 3 or so were sold in this country, weren't they?
Very rare in this country. Yeah, very rare in this country. Only 350 or so sold worldwide, I think, at about £350,000. They're worth a lot more than that today because of their rarity, because of their purity. And Lexus and Toyota do occasionally do things their own way, don't they? They just decide that they're going to put engineering everything at something, and so they threw it that way. And for a car so rare to go up the hill in such a decent time is very impressive, I think. Actually, 57 or so seconds, which is...
Is this Horatio's personal car?
I think this is his own car, and I think this is the one he brought over. It's one of the last of the Zondas. The Zonda was the car he first introduced at the Geneva Motor Show in the late 1990s, and you could see straight away the engineering integrity was there.
Here's David Brabham.
Yeah.
Isn't it lovely to have the Brabham name back? This is the brand new BT62, built in Australia. Absolutely beautiful and resplendent in the martini colours, reminding us of the fan car that Brabham won the Swedish Grand Prix with.
Indeed, yeah, there were 70 of these BT62s, 35 of which will have some kind of Brabham historic livery to them. So, yeah, as you say, this one has the fan car livery. 34 will have something else, and then the remaining 35 in that production run, you can kind of do what you